Finance of America presents the Mastermind Summit. Learn how to grow your real estate business, your income, and your profit. Discover the marketing strategies of the world's most successful real estate agents. Finance of America is one of the premier mortgage bankers in America. We are committed to helping the best real estate agents get even better. With Finance of America on your team, you can spend more time selling real estate and connecting with your clients. Shark Tank's Barbara Corcoran teaches you how to survive and thrive in any real estate market.
Ladies and gentlemen, Barbara Corcoran.
You must be desperate. Okay, I have to ask you, did somebody pay you to stand up and do all that shit? Are you sure? Well, let me tell you, it feels great. I wouldn't mind that every day of my life. It would be good for my head, my insecurity, my confidence, etc., etc. Well, I'm very happy to be here, of course, because I always like people clapping and smiling at me, but also because I have a group of like souls here. The people that I built my whole life with, real estate people, people that I favor above everybody else, the scrappiest people on earth, in my opinion, and I've met a lot of scrappy people. And so I'm so very, very happy to have the opportunity to just connect in some way. And I hope if I do a good job, leave you with a few things that you could leave back, that you could use back at the office. And if I don't do that, then I'll feel like I disappointed you. But I do want you to know I'll try my very best. I'm going to start by simply telling you the story of how I got my start, because I had a magical childhood, and I'll spend just a minute on that. I'm not going to do a travelogue here. I had a magical childhood in a town called Edgewater, New Jersey. I'm sure some of you know where that town is. It was then a factory town, a blue-collar town, and we had, in our family, the Corcoran clan, we had the biggest family in town. And I was very proud of that, as were my 9 brothers and sisters. My mother put her 6 girls in the girls' room, painted pink. The boys' room was painted blue. My 4 brothers went there. And my mother and father produced every one of those kids from the Castro convertible. They were devout Catholics. And proving that you really don't need romance to have a bunch of kids. My mom in our family was the powerhouse. Not to take anything from my father, who worked 2 jobs his entire life and provided for all of us. But my mom was the inspiration in our family. You knew when she was in the house, which was always, and you knew her influence on you even when you were a little kid. And as grown-ups, now, when I get together with my sisters and brothers, who do we really talk about? You'd think my mother, who made 3 meals a day, did 8 loads of wash, didn't have a dryer, ironed our clothes, polished our shoes, did everything. But no, we talk about my dad instead, because he was fun. I'll get more to my dad in a minute. My mom was a tremendous inspiration. She would have a routine she did every day of our lives. She'd bring a kid home from Holy Name Hospital, and she'd unwrap the child and show however many kids she had. Meet your brother T. He's going to be an amazing dancer. And then she'd show us Tommy's legs, big muscular legs kicking like crazy. And I remember distinctly, I was about 8 when Tommy came home. I thought, oh, a dancer in the family, cool. And so what happened with my brother T, or Tommy, as my mom called him, he grew up to be a ballet dancer for the Alvin Alley Dance Theater, a phenomenal dancer. And to this day, he says he really couldn't dance, but he always thought he could. My brother Eddie was a born leader because he was ADD. Now we have a label for that, and uncontrollable. And he was labeled a born leader. Cut it out, Eddie. Every boy in the neighborhood's watching you. And he would straighten out. And what is he as an adult? He's a born leader, the head of this council, the head of this, and he's straightened out. And for me, she said I had a great imagination. And my job in the family was to entertain the other kids. So if it was raining out, I was sent to the basement with 9 kids behind me, teaching them how to put on a Broadway show. If it was a sunny day, I was the kid in the backyard opening a rock store and stapling rocks and paper to sell, because my mother said that would be a cool idea, and I had a wonderful imagination. And so it went on and on. But what we all came out of the household with was my mother's undeniable stamp of what we were good at. She chose to ignore everything we did wrong, never addressed it. God forbid you go to my mother in an argument with a sibling, she would say, you're both punished. End of story. So we never got any satisfaction. He hit me first. I don't care. You're both punished. Okay. And so we came out of our household, of course, learning how to get along with each other, thinking we had an amazing gift, each of us. We all knew exactly what it was, and she forced us in the role of demonstrating our gift for the rest of our lives. I'm going to jump forward to being 22. I'm at the 23 actually, just 23, at the Fort Lee Diner as a waitress, the night that Ramon Simone walked in. Ramon totally changed my life. The minute he walked up the concrete steps into that diner and I was behind the counter, one look at him, I knew I was going to lose my virginity within the month. Women know this. And it wasn't even though I was saving it for anybody. Nobody had asked me for it. Ray, well, that's the way it was. Ray offered me a ride home. He gave me a ride home that night, and my parents hated him on sight. My mother said she doesn't understand what a man that age, she was 10 years older than me. What would a man that age have an interest in a girl like you? Well, I knew what he was interested in. It was okay with me. But I was competing that night at the Fort Lee Diner, as usual, with Gloria, the blonde bombshell at the next counter. She had a gimmick that put the Fort Lee Diner on the map. And if anybody here is in their 60s and a guy from that portion of New Jersey, I'm sure you still remember Gloria. Everybody does. She was a dead ringer for Dolly Parton. And before the days where you could get a breast implant, I believe, she had 2 breasts that were like giant shoe boxes. And her gimmick was she would balance 2 coffee cups in each hand, 2 more on each boob, I couldn't make this shit up, and bang her way through the doors and serve the men. So of course, men just waited in line to sit at her counter as I was washing mine for the 9th time that night. But the night before, Ray, talk about timing on life, the night before Ramon Simone walked in, I was complaining to my mother about how unfair Nick was, not doling out the customers. My mother said, you know, Barbara, why don't you stay as sweet as you are, maybe braid up that long blonde hair and put some ribbons on it. And so I took that idea, braided my long blonde hair, and I'm telling you, that's what Ramon Simone was attracted to, like every man. You either love the blonde bombshell or you love the great virgin. And I offered that little Heidi look to Ramon Simone that hooked him in on my counter, thank God. Within a year, Ramon would move me to the big city. I would not see my parents for 6 years because they swore I was becoming a prostitute. And they were sort of right, in a way. Okay, although a little exaggerated Catholic way, you know. But he gave me $100 to buy myself a new New York outfit, and I went and bought myself a lavender outfit, lavender from head to toe, including the boots at Bloomingdale's. And he also offered to pay for a week at the Barbizon Hotel for women, where no men were allowed, very respectable. And I moved into the Barbizon Hotel, and I never went back to New Jersey. I got a job as a receptionist for the Jafuni Brothers. Jafuni Brothers, 50 million times a day, Jafuni Brothers. And then within a year after that, Ramon Simone said, you know what? You'd be great as a real estate salesman with your personality. Why don't you start a real estate business? I'll give you $1,000. $1,000. That's like someone offering one of your kids today like $20,000. That's how much money that was then. And I took the $1,000. Ramon said he'd take 51% of the business. After all, he was the investing partner, and he'd give me 49%. I'd be the managing partner. I love the way that sounded, managing partner. Boy, I told everybody I was a managing partner. And so I started the Corcoran Simone Company with an accent on the O for Simone to make it extra fancy, because Ramon had accents on his names. And so that was the birth of Corcoran Simone. We built that company very quickly. It seemed easy. I was renting apartments, running around town. It didn't even feel like a job. And every time I had an extra $400, I knew I could support a salesman for 1 whole month, advertising 3-line ads every week in the New York Times. That was my little formula. So when I got the extra money, I hired another salesperson. And then we were in business 7 years, and we had 14 salespeople. I was on top of the world. 14 salespeople, the giant in town, Douglas Elliman. At that point in time, I had 50 people. I'm like, 50? Could you imagine what 50 people in a real estate office would look like? It seemed unbelievable. And then one night, I'm making pasta for Ray's 3 girls. He told me he had children after I moved in with them. They moved in with us. And I'm dumping the pasta in the sink when Ray walks in and says, we have something serious to talk about. Oh, yes, Ray, I said, looking up. And he said, I'm going to marry your secretary. Your secretary? I thought I was hearing a bad joke. Tina, who was a perfectly good secretary until I found my mouth saying, that bitch? Yes, but don't get upset. Don't get upset. We're in love. We're going to get married. And take your time moving out. Just take your time. I was out of there in about a minute with my toothbrush and out the door. And lucky for me, my best friend Kathy Gilson let me live on her couch on 79th Street for almost a year and a half until I was able to recover from probably the only bad time in my whole life. I went into a tailspin emotionally over this. It wasn't so much that I was rejected, but that I was replaced by a younger woman. She was a younger me, 5 years younger, long blonde hair, prettier than me, and Ramon was in love with her. I didn't want to share my office with Tina anymore. She sat with me, so Ray moved me out to the sales pit, and he moved in with Tina. So going to work every day and seeing Mr. and Mrs. Simone was horrible for me. I should have just said, you know what you both could do with yourself? But I didn't. I was down and out, like, oh my God, I'm nobody. I went right back to Edgewater thinking to myself, Ray found me. He took me from my parents. He said I could do it. He gave me money to start my business. He was right by my side. We have 14 people. I'm making a living. I'm nothing without Ray. And that's the state I was in for a year and a half until one day I decided to walk into that office. It was a Friday morning. I can't even tell you what clicked in my head or why it took me so long. And I said, we're going to divide this company up today, just like a football draw. You're going to pick the first salesperson. I get to pick the second. We're going to chop them right in half. That's what we did. If you want the phone number, you can keep it. If not, I'll keep the phone number. You get a new one. If you want to move out, you can. If not, I'll move out. And within, I would say, 3 minutes, we divided the business that we had worked on for 7 years. And so I collected my 7 people over into the corner, and I said, guess what? We're moving a new office on Monday. We are! Where are we moving? It's a surprise! But in those days, okay, you were able to, which I did immediately, go down to 42nd Street before the Hyatt was built there. It was a slum, it was a derelict alley, and you could buy your desks, black metal desks, on the street and have the guys selling them run them up from the sidewalks all the way to Midtown and put them in your office. And so I bought myself 14 desks. I negotiated the exact same space with my landlord that day, on that Friday afternoon, to move 3 floors up above Ramon. He was on 8, I was on 11, that felt good. And I was able to call on Friday afternoon AT&T and have leased phones installed first thing on Monday morning. Remarkable. So that's how long it took to build an office. Boom, everything was done because of monopolies and slumlords on 42nd Street. And so my salespeople moved into their new business on Monday morning, and I decided to call it the Corcoran Group because I figured if I was going to succeed with a business without Ray, I was going to have to really lean on the group, and that's how the name came up. And so we opened our business that day as the Corcoran Group. But before I left on that Friday afternoon, Ray said to me, oh, Barbara, there's something I want to tell you. And I should know it. That's always bad news. I go, yes, Ray? And he said, you know, you'll never succeed without me. And he gave me the insurance policy of a lifetime because I felt in my gut I would rather die than let you see me not succeed. I finally found my feet under me again. And believe me, if he hadn't given me the power of the insult, I would not be standing here and having built that huge business that I was able to do. Because every time I ran out of an idea or thought I couldn't succeed, it was over leveraged near bankruptcy, which if you're building fast, you're going to be in the brokerage business. I would think of those words and find one more idea and come back strong. And that was always the idea that somehow got me over the hump and kept me in business. It was like a formula for success, the power of the insult. Thank God. Ramon was wrong. I sold my business exactly 20 years later, to the day almost, for $66 million cash. And I was like thinking, well, screw you, Ray. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Don't clap too hard because I'm pissing away that money on Shark Tank. I used to have a lot of money. It's like, how much do we have left? All right. Lessons I've learned along the way that I hope would be useful to you. The power to create a perception bigger than you actually are is magical. And I became a master at that. And let me tell you how it happened. I remember one day I had Lorraine Friedberg come into my office, who was the broker from hell, always whining and complaining, but she made a lot of money. Why does that often come together? But anyway, she came to my office and whining and complaining, oh, you don't advertise for us. You're not advertising. How do you expect us to make money? But well, she was right, of course, but I had no money for advertising. I was near bankruptcy. And I remember thinking, if I had a gun on my desk right now, I would take it out and kill this woman. Really, that was clearly in my head, but I didn't have the gun. But instead, she left my office. I'm thinking, how the hell do I get these people to shut up? I don't think I could take another day of this. And so I thought, oh, I know what we'll do. And I took my 11 sales for the year, only 11, for the entire year is what we had. I added them up, divided by 11, and I came up with an apartment average. And I typed on a piece of paper the Corcoran report. I thought, that sounds official. And I dreamt up the byline, a report of conditions and trends in the greater New York City market area. That sounds fancy. And I put average apartment price, $58,432. That's what it was. And I put my phone number, and I mailed it out to everyone who wrote to the New York Times that day. The sports writers, the news writers, because they all had their bylines so I could pick up the names. And I mailed out probably 80, 90 Corcoran reports, single page, and never heard anything. But on that Sunday, never pictures, this is only like 5 days later, I opened up the New York Times to the real estate section, which was thick. Everybody found their homes before the advent of the internet in the New York Times real estate section in Manhattan. And the front page was an article that said, New York City prices hit all-time low. And I look in the first line, it said, according to Barbara Corcoran of the Corcoran Group. I'm like, holy shit. This is that Catholic miracle Mom said would always happen. And I cut out that little piece, and I took it to my office, and I glued it on my pink princess phone on my desk. And I looked at that, and I thought, I have a partner. I have a new partner. And it was the New York Times. And boom, it hit me over the head like a club. And that Monday morning, as the salespeople came into the sales pit, I overheard John Beckman, my German descent salesman, saying to someone on the phone, let me spell it for you, the way he talks. That sounds Chinese, but anyway, if you're German, help me out. I'll say it with regular language. He said, let me spell it for you. He said, it's C-O-R, and then I heard him say, oh, you've heard of us? How did that happen? Someone for the first time wasn't spelling our name, which always caused a problem because it's redundant. C-O-R, C-O-R. I said C-O-R, C-O-R, C-O-R. Someone knew how to spell our name. Someone who had read the story in the New York Times. And that someone was calling us to give us their listing. That didn't happen to us. And so I became the queen of bullshit for the rest of my career. I churned out reports on reports on reports on anything that I wanted to be when I grew up. So when I didn't have any celebrities at all, and I saw that my big competitors, Brown Harris and Douglas Elliman, had celebrity clients. I'm like, God, I wish I had a celebrity client. And then I read in the New York Post one morning that Madonna was looking for a new apartment. She was pregnant. I published a Madonna report. And what do you think Madonna was looking for? I'll tell you, I know. She was looking for more space, a doorman building, great views, a great space for a baby's room, great light. I just rattled off the same thing every rich person looks for in an apartment. But I named it the Madonna Report. Now, wouldn't it be great if I said I got Madonna? But I didn't. Darn. But I got a call right after that report was getting publicity, and I had a new publicity agent in town called the 11 o'clock news. So I sent my Madonna report to every anchor, just his name on an envelope, looked up the address, sent it over by message to the 11 o'clock news. They opened the Madonna report, and I was invited in 1 week, 3 news stations to talk about Madonna, my client. Is that bullshit? The last guy actually introduced me as Barbara Corcoran, real estate agent to the stars. I'm like, whoa. And I talked about what she would be looking for without ever lying. That nobody ever asked, are you working with her? But I got a call from some other guy after that 10 o'clock news on that Friday night. I got a call again on Monday from a guy who said, I wonder if you would consider working with my client. I liked the way he talked to me. Nobody ever said consider to me. I might consider it. Who is your client? And of course it was Richard Gere. And Richard Gere had just made the movie Pretty Woman, the hottest movie in town. There wasn't a babe in the world that didn't want to sleep with this guy. And I was taking him and showing him apartments. So what did he buy, just to finish that story? A tiny little one-bedroom. He knocked down the walls. He painted lavender and pink and made it a temple and slept below. He was a weird guy. Okay. We couldn't sell that sucker 8 years later when he was selling it. Nobody could visualize it as a home, you know? But we got our first celebrity broker, and then I published the Richard Gere report. And I went on and on and on. And if I didn't get a client that was my client, and a reporter would always call, oh, let me hear, I understand so-and-so, Valentino just bought a townhouse. Can you give us the lowdown? I can't, I'm so sorry, it's not my sale. You should really call Edward Cave. He's the agent on the deal. They'd call Edward Cave, and he was like, I can't comment. The reporter would call me back. Can you comment? Sure, let me tell you all about it. So I got the quotes on my competitor sales. But here was what the power of building perception was before you actually owned it, and why it worked so well in building a brand. You had to run like crazy to catch up with your own stuff that you put out there. If you get a client, a celebrity client, you're going to learn how to do a celebrity client. If you're going to get the Chinese coming into your office that you never had before, you're going to learn how to service the Chinese. So by throwing it out, you create hoops for yourself to jump through, and all of a sudden, you are what you dreamt or bullshitted what you were going to be, right? And that became my mantra in building the Corcoran Group. When I sold the business, sorry, I jumped ahead on you. Don't look. Don't look, this is a bad one. Okay, I'm still back with him. When I sold the business for the amount of money I did, it was not so much based on what our sales revenue were, which was terrific, but everybody in the industry said I was overpaid. I wasn't overpaid. They paid for a brand that could accommodate a larger firm within it once they owned it, and they were smart enough to see that. And so if you want to be a somebody, in essence, whatever the somebody new definition is, I am a firm believer that you put the image that you're already there, and then God takes care of the rest. Buy it if you want or don't. That's my own feeling. All right. Next, I feel like there are only two kinds of people at work, containers and expanders. The day I met Esther Kaplan, my to-be future partner, she came in for a sales interview, and everything about her, I knew she would be a terrible salesman. She was extremely conservative, a secretary for an attorney in town. She had every button. She had her knees squeezed together so hard they were like a little blue on top. She had a knit suit. I'm like, I think she's going to burst before she leaves my office. And so I was giving her the quick 1-2 to get her out of my office to do the next interview when I handed her my business card, and she took my business card and clipped open her little clasp, little concise clasp, like made out of bone, clip. And she took my business card and she hovered. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And she plucked the business card right down the right spot. And as she did it, the purse turned and she had files, little labels in her little purse. Is that the weirdest shit you ever heard? It's the weirdest thing I ever heard or saw. And so I told Esther, you'd be an amazing salesperson, Esther. I'm going to create a position for you at my company. When could you start? I'm going to take you under my wing. I'm going to teach you everything I know. I could tell you are going to be a superstar. She was so startled. Why did I lie through my teeth at Esther Kaplan? Because I saw in Esther my opposite. I figured if she could keep her purse in shape like that, could you imagine what she could do with my business? And so she came in working for me. Within 6 months, I said, I'm going to make you my partner. I'm going to pay you 1% a year of my stock if you'll work for free as my partner, but you could continue to sell to make some money. And I really did help her with sales. Was she ever a great salesperson? No. But was she a consistent salesperson, just barely making the overhead all the time, so she didn't cost me any money? And I had found the ideal partner for me, my exact opposite, the ultimate container when I was the ultimate expander. I would do the interviewing, the PR, the advertising. Esther would do the bank financing, hire the clerical people, work with the insurance companies, all the stuff I hated. She color-coded our entire file system, totally invented the first computer system in New York City for keeping our listings in order. But it was so logical because that was Esther's gift. If I had an advertising agency come in and pitch me 3 boards, 3 different ad campaigns, I'd run them into Esther, put them in her office and say, Esther, what do you think? Which one do you like the best? Tell me, which one do you like the best? Esther would look at those boards and I could have knit a sweater waiting for her to decide. Just look at the boards and finally she'd say, well, any of them, but not that one. And that would be the one I'd run with because it was such a great ad campaign because she was so bad at advertising. It was like a litmus test, get it? But imagine the power of knowing that I was free to spend my entire time doing all the things that came naturally to me to expand everything. And Esther was free to do everything that came naturally to her, is to contain everything. If I saw an extra $100,000 coming into the firm 6 months out, Esther would hide it from me. You know, she was my perfect yin and yang. And so every office I opened from that point on, I never hired a sales manager without an assistant sales manager that was as strong as Esther, and without a sales manager that was, I felt, as strong as me in the gifts that I had. Expander, container. And I'm telling you, I never had a bad or failing sales office, and I contributed entirely to understanding that unusual combination of what really works running a department or a business. Next, I was great at recruiting people. Boy, was that the fun part. If you moved and I liked you, I was recruiting you. I don't care where I met you, what you were doing, you were coming to work for me. But I also found that I was terrible at firing people because I fell in love with people. And when you fall in love with people, it's hard to fire them until I created a system, my second year in business at the Corcoran Group, with Esther's encouragement. She said we needed a system that could fire people automatically or we'd be losing our shirt on the people that we were hiring who weren't productive, because we were opening so many offices, and what you have, as you all know, is you have a long period where you don't get your production up and you could get murdered. So Esther said, let's shorten that period so we don't get murdered. And so the system we came up with was rather simple. If we had, say, 200 salespeople, I listed the 200 salespeople on a spreadsheet from the most productive to the least productive, having nothing to do with when they started at the company. And what I would do is meet with my sales managers. I knew what my overhead was, $48,400, for example. I would cross a line across with a $48,000 hit, and anyone who wasn't making $48,400 for the company was below the red line. And I would say to my sales managers, see all of your agents below the red line. You have 3 months to turn them around, or you'll have to fire them at our next quarterly meeting. Do everything in your power to turn them around, but if you can't, you gotta fire them. Next meeting came, anybody who was still below that red line got fired. Now, it might sound cold and hard, but as a result of having an automatic system for great sales managers to abide by, with no exceptions except 1 pet per office, if you really want somebody in your office and not productive, 1 pet per office. But other than that, everybody went. Everybody went. What was also key to that system is every single person we hired knew what the rule was. Our overhead is $48,400 a year, so in the first 3 months in business with you as our firm, we know you're new, we'll do everything in our power to make you hugely successful, and we truly did. But if you don't make 1/4 of that overhead, we have to fire you. Most people fired themselves. We had very few people to fire because everybody knew what to expect. Now, sometimes you have a slow starter and you think they're filled with promise. Then you become gracious and say, you're so amazing, we're giving you another 3 months. But for the most part, we had an automatic system for flushing out non-productive salespeople. I can't tell you how many people over the years I've met in my own business who have really bought into the philosophy that I'm better off having Mary Jane, who's at least bringing in $15,000 a year, than having nobody in the desk. I have found if you have nobody in the desk, you will fill it with another shot at getting somebody who could produce your overhead, or even better, produce a huge profit. So I loved having empty desks emptying out, and I also loved the pressure it put on my good salespeople. And you know what I learned? They don't want clunkers next to them. Good salespeople lose respect for their boss in the business if they see a few clunkers that stay in the company. When you get rid of the clunkers, they're complimented by it. So you have to have phenomenal systems for recruiting, but it's useless if you don't have equally strong systems for getting rid of the dead wood. And that's as simple as it was. Next, I found that when I had my first baby, Tommy, when I was 46, that's an old age for a woman, right? I found that everything changed. The first day I went into my office after giving birth, Carrie Chiang, my #1 salesperson in the company, a powerhouse, still the #1 salesperson in all of New York, she came into my office screaming at me because I'd always been to work at 8 o'clock when she was at work, but I was coming in at 9 because I was breastfeeding. Little detail, right? And these little breasts, give me a break. Right? She came into my office screaming at me, saying, "You don't care about nobody but that boy. You don't care about me." Like, I can't believe this. She was sincere and full of gusto. And I realized what I had playing out there is sibling rivalry. I was going to be a mom at home. I wanted to be 150% mom, be a great mom to my new child. And I still want to be 150% mom to Carrie and the rest of my maybe 700 salespeople I had by then. And you know what I found? It was impossible to do both. Something had to give. And now I realize if I had had a baby early as a woman, I could have never built the Corcoran Group. No way, no how. Because your affection, your time, your focus is so divided, it's an impossibility. In a real way, I had a lucky male break. I lived like a man. I could have had a trophy wife watching my kids, but I didn't. But I was free to focus on work like a guy can. And so I found that once I was a mother, all bets were off. The only thing I've been able to do now that I have 2 kids, my second at 56, the only thing I can do to manage everything I do and my kids is to build an ironclad wall between my home and my life. My kids wouldn't dare call me at work unless they were dead, maybe. Okay, they'd call Gail, my assistant, if they're desperate. Now that might sound mean, but they know when I'm at work, but when I walk in that house at 5:30 at night, my cell phone goes in the plug in the hallway, no one would dare touch me in my personal space. A very hard habit to break for somebody like me, not to check my emails that are urgent and all this, but plug it in the hall and divide it. That has been the single best thing I have managed to do, being a mother and a business owner now. Right? But again, I'm saying that when women start businesses with kids, and now I own many businesses with women with children, they have, I would say, about a 50% chance of succeeding versus a man with kids. I know, I've lived it for 7 years. You can't do both and do it the way a guy can. It's as simple as that, the law of the land. Next. I remember having superstar salespeople who hated each other. I had Carrie, my early superstar. I had Sharon Baum, my Harvard MBA, first woman I got a Harvard MBA. I had Robbie Brown on his bicycle. Oh, I'm harmless. I'm just showing up for that $8 million listing on my bicycle. Beware. But I found all my superstars hated each other, and we had great camaraderie in the company. And then all of a sudden that changed, and I'll tell you how it happened. I had a little extra money, and I convinced Esther, who I labeled the cheapskate, if I could take $800 of our excess capital and spend it on a fun event. She conceded, and so I hired an open-aired bus and told my salespeople on the Monday meeting, Friday night, we're going on a fun event. A fun event? What do you mean? Oh, we're going on a fun event? It's a surprise, but wear your best suit, wear your best jewelry, wear high heels, doll yourself up. They came down for the fun event, and I had this jalopy old open-aired bus, and I think there's a picture up there of it? Yes, okay. And I'm so happy I have that picture. We only had at the time, I think, 17, 18 salespeople in the company. And when they sat down, they said, come upstairs, sit upstairs. Okay, where are we going, Barb? Where are we going? We're going on a slow tour of Harlem. Just when Harlem was the scariest place on earth. And so in the middle of July, we rolled up to Harlem and weaved in and out of the streets with people on the stoops with their radios, very friendly, hey, baby, and all this. My white salespeople were ready to die, okay? Except for V. Wilson, thank God, my only black salesperson who helped me plan the whole thing out. And her best idea was, when we get to 145th in Amsterdam, she said, it's really scary there. She said, let's pretend the bus breaks down. I love it! And so the bus driver left the bus, and V. Wilson's recollection, and it's so funny because I only saw her about maybe a year ago again, And she still says the same thing. She said, when that bus broke down, I swear I was like a flagpole with 8 white women clinging to me. People were in a panic, but we eventually rolled back to Madison and 60th Street, and that's when I saw something magic happen Monday when we came back to work. I saw Sharon Baum from Harvard MBA standing next to Catty Chiang, and they had literally their arm on each other, laughing and laughing and laughing. I thought I was seeing things, right? And they were talking about the Harlem bus ride. What were you thinking? Did you... People talked about this Harlem bus ride. It was almost interfering with work. For the entire week, went on and on and on. 10, 15 years later, if somebody was old at the Corcoran Group, looked old, and a new upstart came in, really frisky, they would say, were you on that Harlem bus ride? Which was an insult. I mean, you look that old that you must have been on that original event. But what did I get from that original event? The valuable lesson that you gotta have fun at work. I became the queen of fun at the Corcoran Group. We planned bizarre fun, not the mandatory Christmas party like, oh my gosh, oh, how are you? Look handsome tonight. No. We did dress-up parties. Every February, you had to come dress. We did dress in your pajamas, dress 1940s, dress 1950s, cross-dress at the Waldorf Astoria Ballroom. First time I ever got a petition from my straight men saying they would not come. I knew they were going to come, and they wouldn't miss one of my parties. They were so much fun. Do you know how exciting it is to be in the grand ballroom and see your entire sales force cross-dressed? Is that you, Charlie? Yeah, it's me, Bart. Hysterical. But what did we do by having the best parties in town, the best picnics in the summer in town with motorcycle gangs, crashing our parties, girls yanking up their skirts, getting on the back of the Harleys, balloons, camels, elephants, anything that people would say, what, is what I hired. And why did I do it? Because we created a fun culture. And I expected that. I did exactly for my salespeople what my dad did for us as children when he shoved us all on a long wooden ladder in the snow over a retaining wall and into oncoming traffic. It was like, wow, this is fun. And so I became the Pied Piper of fun, and I felt it to be the most important part of my job, quite honestly, and probably spent, I'd say 35% of every one of my working days thinking of what I could do to shake things up in bizarre, fun situations. And as a result, my salespeople loved the company. Why would you work for a competitor who's going to give you the same high split, the same advertising, the same branding, when you can get all of that and come to my office and have back massages at your desk every Tuesday and Thursday, shoe shine boys every Friday. They'd even shine your purses if you left them in the cubby hole. Why would you want to be at that boring company when you could come over at my place and laugh your ass off, right? And people came. And so for the last 10 years of my business, never did I recruit really, ever. Maybe once or twice, someone in particular. But why? Because I wanted to get all the people in the company that were part of our culture that would love to have fun, and that's exactly what we did. And what was the big surprise we got for having fun? We got to be the most creative shop in town. Because when people are sitting at a conference room table, I don't care how bright they are, I don't care what your agenda is, what kind of facilitator you have, you're never going to come up with a phenomenal idea. That's been my experience. I never had a great idea on my desk, and I'm a very creative soul. But what I found is you get people outside the office having drunks, getting drunk, being in a situation they've never been in before, getting to like each other, you get collaboration. And when you get collaboration, people start thinking outside the box, and so we became the creative hothouse for our industry by accident. But not so much by accident, because the means of getting there was having a culture where you constantly had fun, right? I think I drilled that right into the ground, right? Next, I am great at failure, and I learned in building a business that that is the #1 card. I've also learned in buying businesses on Shark Tank, that is the #1 card. When I take the 37 businesses I've invested in on Shark Tank and chop them into piles, I basically have 6 phenomenally successful businesses. What's that? What percentage is that? 6, 12, 8, 20. Not so good. What is it, 15, 20%? Very successful businesses. Then I have a bunch that probably aren't going to be successful, and then I have my ones that are dead on arrival. And the minute I know that they don't have what it takes to build a business, I take their picture. I have everybody's picture, like my children, and I turn it upside down on my wall to remind me never to spend another minute with these people. Okay? What does every great entrepreneur have in common? The same thing that every one of my great salespeople had in common. They have an innate great ability to fail. Not that people like it. I learned failure first in 3rd grade when Sister Stella Marie screamed at me and said, if you don't learn to pay attention, you'll always be stupid. That bitch. It was her. I later learned, actually, from someone who knew her, she was a drunk. Did you know nuns can drink? But anyway, just because I couldn't read or write in school, I was labeled stupid. All right, so it took me till 7th grade. I got it eventually. But I was labeled stupid? How sad is that in a world that judges kids just by how well they decode and add up numbers? What a narrow definition of smarts, right? But I learned it early, and you know what was great about that? I learned how to recover, have friends despite it, be laughed at and still have friends, right? And so I learned in business that my great gift was the ability to recover. When I had my homes on tape, I'll tell you this story, wrong slide. When I was asked by Equitable Insurance to sell 88 apartments that couldn't be sold and they didn't want an auction in the depth of an 18% interest market and nobody was buying anything, what did I do? I couldn't think of how to sell the damn things until I mimicked a puppy sale that I went to as a kid where there were 12 buyers and only 4 puppies and everyone got sold. And so I priced all the apartments alike, 88 apartments, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, flat price, 1 year free maintenance. Equitable said I could do that. And I released the sheet early one morning and told my salespeople, only bring your most valuable customers and family because it's not enough to go around. First come, first serve. I was mimicking a puppy sale. And within an hour and a half flat, I had 88 apartments sold, full price. Boom, contract signed. Just like that. Don't clap for that, because that money went by fast. Because I was in the debt, I was in hock for almost $800,000, but it saved my business, thank God. Right? So I always knew how to recover from failure, and I found that every bad thing that happened, like my stupid homes on tape, we're going to put all of our apartments on videotape, so you just hand out the videotape and your customers could pick out their apartments from home. Oh, Barbara, what a great idea. It was a stupid idea. Okay? So looking at all these water-sogged videotapes that I blew $76,000 on my whole annual profit, and I hadn't told Esther, because I cut the check without her, I was in trouble. But what happened then? I had a lucky break when my husband, who was a Navy captain, said, oh, when we were in Korea, we were bombing the North Koreans on this new government thing called the internet. How did that happen? How did that look? Oh, it was in real time, it felt real? And I go, oh, and I threw all those videos on this new thing called the internet, and what do you think? Bang, bang, the first week, I had 2 sales from London. I didn't expect it, and so I registered all my competitors' URLs under my name immediately. But not to control it, but I realized what I had stepped in. Oh, this is the best thing that's going to ever hit real estate. And I just wanted to know when my large rivals woke up. And you know, the biggest company in town called me last, almost a year and a half later, to ask for their URL back. No problem, here it is. I just wanted to know when they woke up. The little guys woke up first, proving that if you're a little guy in business, you have the advantage of moving fast and discovering things early, way over the little guy. That was my test for that, right? But I found that I was great at failing. My Carrie Chiang, the #1 salesperson in New York, I was watching on the news one night, Taiwan's market had crashed and all of her business came from Taiwan and she alone was producing 40% of my company, dollar. And I'm like, shit, if her business stops, my business is dead. I called Carrie, it's Barbara, call me back, don't worry. Barbara, it's Barbara, call me back. I couldn't find Carrie at night, at home, on her 2 cell phones. Her assistants didn't hear from her, she disappeared. I thought Carrie had committed Harry over this. Right. But I sold her short. Like 4:30 in the afternoon, she comes rumbling into my office, smeared mascara, messed up hair. She always looked perfectly coiffed, you know. And I'm like, Carrie, don't worry. I'm so happy to see you. I really was. I thought maybe she was dead. And she said, Barbara, I up all night, terrible night. I'm like, don't worry, Carrie, don't worry. I have a plan, which I did. Don't worry, Carrie. And she goes, I get 127 new listings. She called anyone she ever sold to and said, the sky's falling, you better sell now. That's why she was disappearing for almost 24 hours. She was collecting new listings. And then what did she do? She immediately hired 2 Japanese assistants within that week. Where she found them, how she got them, I don't know, but boy, do I respect her. You know, the Chinese don't like the Japanese, and Japanese don't like the Chinese. But she hired 2 Japanese people working for her, 2 young women, to speak the language, because the Japanese were all coming into New York and buying the cheap stuff from the Chinese, taking advantage. And so today, half of her business is still Chinese, but she's got Japanese business, German business. Carrie, the queen of recovering. I looked at her and I thought, poetry in motion. How do you not love her? That was her interpretation. So I have found, when I look at all the people at the Corcoran Group, the superstars making $10 million a year versus the average person making $130,000 in the same year, almost like 80% of the force. How do those superstars do it? Is it their connections? I used to think so. It's not. Is it the head start they had in the business? No. Is it their educational level? No. You know what I found? The only difference between the amazing people that are making that shitload of money at the top and everybody else is how long they take to feel sorry for themselves. That's it. That's the only thing I came up with after all those years. And you know what? I almost find that the most productive salespeople are often the least intelligent. It's almost like you need a low IQ to say, I'm down, hit me again, I'm an ass, hit me again, right? Whereas an intelligent person really knows, I better lay low a little bit and recover. But my agents that I fired over the years almost always got fired for their one Achilles heel. They had the lousy customer, they put themselves out like crazy, and yet this happened, and then they had this sad sack story that finished them off, and they went into hiding. I have found the #1 trait I look for in all my Shark Tank partners today is I'm just watching for one thing. How good are they at getting back up? And that's what I'm always drilling at and always wanting to know. And those are the superstars, just like the salespeople, no difference at all. Carrie Chiang. Is this Donald Trump? All right, I put him in because he's popular right now. Please tell me you won't vote for him. All right. The day I met Donald Trump, I published a report called the Condominium Market Report, because I didn't have any condominiums to sell, nor did I have salespeople. So I wanted to be that, so I published a report on it. And I listed the top 10 condo prices in New York, and Donald Trump was number 8, 9, and 10, 3 sales. And yet I looked in the paper every week, and he was advertising Trump Tower, the most expensive address in all the world, full page ads. I'm like, he's lying. Look at these, he's lying. Takes one to know one. He's lying. And so I put the report together, named it the top 10 condo survey, I think, in the end. I sent it to him by messenger with a little note saying, Donald, like I knew him, Donald, I thought you might want to see this before I release it to the press. I don't even know how that thing got over the 4 blocks to his office, but I got a phone call. He wanted to see me immediately screaming, and said to my secretary, Sylvia Alpert, who was 20 years older than me, and very self-confident, I want to talk to her now. I'm sorry, she's not available. Do you know who you're talking to? Sylvia shot back, do you know who you're talking to? I'm like, I gave her a raise immediately, just for that. Off I went to Donald's office the next day, and of course I'm behind that big airline desk where I'm a mini me and he's a big him. He's got all of his big-chested secretaries zooming around. It was quite a show. And once I sit down, the only thought I had is, oh my God, what did I get myself into? I was scared. How do you handle this monster? And funny as it is, I thought on the spot, because we're all much better under pressure than we are thinking about what we're going to do, I thought, wait, this is done on a price per room. If I converted to a price per foot, his apartment is so little, he's going to come out on top. And so after he screamed at me for 10 minutes and I was shaking and wondering what I was going to do, I was so young at the time, I said, I have an idea. What if we convert, blah, 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 blah. He brought all those people with the calculators, and he came out number 1 through 8 on the chart, and we released it to the press. Donald became my best friend in real estate. When I was a nobody and he was a big somebody, you know how helpful that is? And so he put a full-page ad in the Wall Street Journal that said Trump Tower, the most expensive address in the whole world, and a little asterisk on the bottom, and he put the Corcoran Group. And called me, did you see the ad? Yeah, but I thought the name on the bottom was a little small. And so he put a New York Times ad a few days later, according to the Corcoran report, Trump Town, like, more like it. Now, we all know he turned out to be an asshole. I'm in trouble, all right. I am in trouble if he gets elected, so do not vote for him. But a few years later, many years later, we sold the largest landmass deal in Manhattan, the Penn Yards, okay, that Donald Trump owned. Believe it or not, it was sold by a salesperson who had never had a sale. And the commission was $4.5 million. And when this lady walked into my office and said, hello, she didn't have an appointment, pretty arrogant. I hated her on sight, right? And I still didn't have the gun. But she said, I'd like you to arrange an appointment for me to meet all of your developers because I have a client that wants to buy big hotels. And in particular, I'd like to start with Mr. Trump. I wanted to say, you gotta be out of your mind, but oh, really? Who is your client? It's a Chinese consortium I got from a broker in Canada. And they're coming to New York in about 2 months, and I have to put a portfolio together. Oh, fine, and what was your name again? And what's your background? She works with her husband in a garage in Brooklyn. Never sold sales, just got a fresh license. I'm like, I'll tell you what, I could connect you with Carrie Chiang, who is connected with every developer in town and sells their stuff all the time, but you can't work on this independently. She says, I won't. I walked out of my office. Amazing. Chutzpah, I liked her already. She's getting better. When she came back 2 days later, she was willing to work with Carrie because she couldn't get anywhere without her. And Carrie introduced her consortium to Donald Trump. And at the Plaza Hotel, we got the makings of the biggest deal in New York history, and she took half of that commission. But something went awry. What happened was Donald sued us for the amount of the commission, because that's what Donald does. The other side of Mr. Trump. And so we had to defend ourselves in court for 2 years at the cost of $580,000 of legal fees, which I certainly couldn't afford, but we won. And he gave us, finally, the $4 million commission plus another $2 million three years later that he owed. And here's an interesting detail I'll share with you, because I don't want you to vote for him. This is not a political rally. He had to pay us the commission in equal installments monthly of $555,555 or whatever it is. And the check would arrive, and if it was late beyond the 30th day of the month, the legal document said the whole money came due. He would wait till 3 o'clock on Friday, and we'd get our check. But no problem, because I had a standing order with our local fancy florist, and they knew on cue at 3:05 they should bring the big bouquet of flowers to Donald Trump's office with my handwritten note that I wrote way in advance, thank you for the money, and send it over to Mr. Trump's office. And he on cue would immediately have his secretary write on it rejected and send it back to me. So for the next 5.5 years of my career, I had beautiful fresh flowers on my desk every week. It was great, right? This is a little thank you for Donald for being so kind to me. Wait. There it goes. Oh, no, wait. The best part went around. Ah, shit. Let me try one. There it is. Not very nice. Same with Shark on Shark Tank. Funny as it would turn out, I got a call, do I want to be and invest on this new show, invest my own money? I love it. It's perfect for me. I could be good at this. Yes, I'll take it. Never read the contract, signed the contract when it came. It was long in coming. Sent it back. 8 days later, I was going to Los Angeles, Hollywood, to be a Hollywood star on a TV show. I'm like, I don't believe my life. And then I got a call from Mark Burnett's assistants of some kind. He's a big Hollywood producer. And he said to me, or through her, said to me, I'm sorry, we've given the lone female chair to someone else, but we'll hold you as a fallback. A fallback, I love that. Lovely word, right? And so after I felt sorry for myself for about a minute, I did exactly what I always do well. I recovered and got back up pissed. And so I wrote him a quick email, And I told him that I considered his rejection my lucky charm, that everything good in my life happened on the heels of failure, and I would add his rejection to it. I told him about Sister Stella Marie saying I'd be stupid. I told him about the Old Boy Network in New York who said I'd never compete with them and take their turf, and I became the #1 rival. I told him about Donald Trump saying we'd never see a penny of the $1 million of commissions, and I beat him in state court. And I just went bullet, bullet, bullet. I was pissed. And then I ended it by saying, I suggest you invite both women out to compete for the seat, and I hope to be on that plane on Thursday afternoon. And what do you think happened? As it always does in life when you stand up for yourself, almost always anyway, he invited us both out to compete for the seat, and thank God I won it. Now imagine if I had not stood up for myself, how different my life would be. 7 years of doing as an exciting kind of work as I ever did at the Corcoran Group. I get a whole second chance, right? All because I was, again, good at the stupid thing that I'm always good at, standing back up. So, as a finish, because I have 3 minutes and 51 seconds, and I'm happy I could show you this for the Shark Tank fans, I'll give you the lowdown real quick in 3 minutes. What are the sharks really like? Don't be fooled. Kevin, Mr. Wonderful, they call him. Kevin is the biggest pushover you'll ever meet in his life. When his trophy wife #2 comes on the set, his personal trainer, before she was his wife, walks on the set, you could see him shaking in his knees. He can't stop the knees. He sits down and crosses his legs. They're still shaking. He's terrified. Right? Kevin is a total pushover. He loves to dress up. Tell him to wear anything, he'll wear it. Oh, okay, this sounds like fun. Okay, he loves wine. If you get stuck at a dinner with him, all you'll do is hear about varieties of wine for the next 4 hours. You don't want to have dinner with this guy, all right? He's arrogant. He thinks he's the king shark. We all get in a van at the end of the day and head back to the hotel. This is after a long 12-hour shooting day. You're physically exhausted from the day. And he keeps us waiting in the van, including Mark Cuban. What's wrong with this man, right? And he takes his time getting undressed as we're all sitting in the van. We want to go home to the hotel. And this was a shot of me actually pulling down his pants. I have another one with his bare ass out, but I'm not showing you that. Okay. Arrogant as could be, thinking he's important, but once he gets on the set, he's really a pushover. Okay. What's Robert really like? I say he's got to come out of the closet. I don't know why it's taken him so long. He loves to wear anything, weird kind of stuff, all right? But what's interesting about Robert is we only get to wear one dress or one suit for the entire season of Shark Tank for editing purposes, so they could cut and paste what they want. All right? That's why we're always in the same clothes. I bring 2 dresses for them to choose from. I hate spending the money on expensive dresses, my money, to wear on the show. You know what he brings, Robert? Probably 45 suits, 50 pairs of cufflinks, different sunglasses, different neckties, and then we all watch Robert get dressed. What do you think? Are these cufflinks? Better tell me the truth. Tell me the truth. Robin, have you spoken to your wife lately? I don't know about him. You judge for yourself. Okay? What's Lori really like? Smart as a bit. Smart. Best merchant on the whole show. She has a phenomenal platform called QVC. She picks up a product there. She knows what sells. She's been doing her whole life. She's a merchant. Knows what sells, gets it on QVC. The single best-selling product for Lori, I think I have it here, is Scrub Daddy. Went on Shark Tank. She has sold to date $7 million worth of Scrub Daddy. Unbelievable, right? Shark Tank made her a millionaire again. Not the rest of us, but Lori is. I'm a little jealous. Lori's all about her hair. To do her hair in the morning takes, I would say, close to 2 hours. Yeah. What's Damon really like? He's got a filthy mouth. The funniest guy you'd ever want to meet, but it's owned by Disney, and all his best lines get edited out. It's really a shame. You know? He has the best lines. We sit there, and we all have to run to the restroom after he says a line. He's that funny, right? He's also got the biggest heart. When he gets behind an entrepreneur, he takes them in as though they're his child and never abandons them. He's an absolute sweetheart, okay? It's him clowning around. Oh, let me not forget, he is a chick magnet. We will go anywhere in Los Angeles on the odd occasion we have enough energy to go out at night. There must be a signal in space that says, Damon coming, Damon coming. Every girl within 100 miles congeals on us. He's good looking, I guess, but I don't get it. I mean, Every girl loves Damon. Okay? They just swarm him. He's got that secret juice. Figure it out. Okay? I don't mind when he kisses me, I have to admit. What's Mark really like? Definitely the smartest guy. And I hope I can say that, not saying it simply because he's the wealthiest guy. He's a multi-billionaire. We are only millionaires. There's a big difference, right? Mark will sit on the set, I want to kill him. I'll be thinking, I'm gonna make a full price bid to that guy. Yeah, I'm gonna pay him his $120,000. I'm gonna only take the stock he's offering. Yeah, I'm making this deal. I make the deal. Mark says, you know what? I want you to work for me. I want you to work for me. I'm gonna pay you $500,000. I'm gonna pay you double for the stock. I'm like, what? That's what a billionaire is. And it drives me nuts. But Mark is such a shrewd judge of people and business and technology, so he's got a package that really hard to compete with on that show. I just think he's the smartest guy by far, okay? When he loses a deal, that's as much emotion you get from one swipe of the hand, it's over. I cry for the next 2 days, okay? He hardly ever clowns around. You really have to work hard to get him to clown around. Yeah, sometimes he does, but he's pretty serious, okay? And so, I should update this. We just finished our 7th season, 8 million viewers, and we finally got 2 Emmys. So that's Shark Tank. Thank you. 1 minute left. I can't believe it. Yeah, okay. We don't have time for questions. I'm sorry. I would love that. But anybody have one 1-minute question? Would that bastard come up to this stage right here? Who is it, you? You're the big mouth. You stand up. Let everybody have a good look at you. Put the camera on this guy. Yeah. I'm not answering that, but I would guess that they're always talking about how sexy I am. Thank you. Thank you.
Finance of America presents the Mastermind Summit. Learn how to grow your real estate business, your income, and your profit. Discover the marketing strategies of the world's most successful real estate agents. Welcome to the 7th Annual Mastermind Summit in Las Vegas with keynote speaker, President George W. Bush.
It's the honor of a lifetime to lead a country as brave and as noble as the United States. Whatever challenges come before us, I will always believe our nation's best days lie ahead. God bless.
At the Mastermind Summit in Atlantic City, you will learn the critical money-making skills you need to build a profitable real estate business. #1 best-selling author and peak performance strategist Anthony Robbins will teach you how to survive and thrive in any mortgage market.
Please grab a seat. Thank you. How are you? So interest rates went up 0.75%. How are you? I'm seeing a mixed reaction to that response. That's why I've come by today. The last time I was here was in 2007, 3 months before the collapse. And I couldn't say much because I've had the privilege for 22 years of my life of working with one of the top 10 financial traders in the history of the world. This is a man who literally made $500 million, which was a lot of money back then, back in 1987 when the largest stock market crashed, percentage-wise still in a day, still the largest. He made $500 million. Now, you can't live on that, but it's a good start for a day. And he made all this money, and then he lost money for the next couple of years because he was like the guy that goes to the moon. And some of you can relate to this. You made more money, did better. Who in the last few years has found a way to do better than you thought you could? Let me see your hands here. Say aye. Things kind of played into his hand. He knew what he was doing. He executed incredibly. And he did something no human had ever done before. He called the market 2 weeks in advance, hour by hour, accurately. When everyone else in the world was freaking out, he was making more money than any human had ever made in the history of the world in a single day. The President of the United States called him and asked, "What should I do?"
At the Success Summit, you will learn the fastest way to increase real estate sales, guaranteed.
Unbelievable. This guy was incredible, got me juiced up. And not only Anthony Robbins was great, but this morning really gave me some good ideas and some strategies on how to take my business up 2, 3, 4 times. I'll be here next year.
Okay, so if you want to double or triple your income, you must to come to this conference. Tony Robbins was amazing.
And this event shows you how to bridge that gap. It gives you specific ideas and strategies in order to take your business from where it is and where you want it to be.
The leading real estate experts and top producing originators will share the critical money-making skills you need to build a profitable real estate and mortgage business. Don't miss this special real estate event. Seating is limited and sells out fast. Be sure to register right away. See you at the Mastermind Summit in Las Vegas and Atlantic City.